Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thank you very much for tuning in. So I'm really excited about this video. Recently, I was able to interview one of the former Harley-Davidson interns from a program that ran back in 2018. It was referred to as the Find Your Freedom internship, where Harley-Davidson just selected 8 college students. They were juniors, seniors in college, and gave them a motorcycle and basically said, hit the road, and they went out and documented their journeys. It was a program that was talked about on YouTube, kind of covered, and then it kind of just went away. So I was very interested to speak directly to one of the interns and gather from him what he thought about the program. So with that being said, I introduce to you guys Brock St. Clair. Brock, thank you very much for jumping on with me here. I really appreciate it. So just why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to my viewers here?
Yeah, sure. I'm Brock St. Clair. I'm a video radio person that is a recent college graduate. I was also, namely, of course, and the reason I'm here at all is I was in Find Your Freedom intern with Harley-Davidson in 2018, which was somehow almost 2 years ago now. That's insane.
And how old are you now?
I'm 23.
23. Okay. So when you were in the program, you were 21 basically started at?
21.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you end up hearing about the Find Your Freedom internship to begin with?
Someone on Facebook, but they sent me a link to it. I watched the video. They had that promo video, you know, where they were like, it was the, ride around the country, young people, very cool. And I was like, oh, I'm a young person. Oh, cool. And so, yeah. And I just, I found it a week before the due date for the video submissions. Because that's how you applied was you just did the video. Now,
there were 8 interns total that I saw, and I'm not sure if there was more that maybe didn't pass their rider tests or whatever. I'm sure that's obviously a barrier to entry is making sure you can get your license. So how was that process for you?
Well, so I was fortunate just because I got up and going really quick. So obviously, yeah, we all went through Riding Academy, which is Harley-Davidson's motorcycle class, right? And for me, I got through the first time. I was super excited to, get on and get all over it. And I luckily, I didn't even know, here's something else you should know about me. Before I started riding, obviously I'd never ridden a motorcycle before, but I'd also never driven a manual transmission car before I started the Harley-Davidson internship. So I didn't know, I knew that clutches existed. I didn't know what they did. I didn't know how to operate them, right? So that was another barrier for me as well, was just learning okay, a manual transmission is a thing that exists and is in motorcycles. And then the other half of that was actually learning to ride a motorcycle. And Harley was super patient about it too, because even the people that didn't get through the first try, it wasn't like, oh, we're kicking you out. It was, right. Just have another pass at it. And there was definitely no pressure to, put yourself in danger, because obviously, as I'm sure everyone imagines, liability was a big issue.
I can only imagine.
We had many meetings.
So what was the overall duration of that Find Your Freedom internship for you? For what you guys were required, time frame for Harley-Davidson?
So we went to Milwaukee before anything was public. We all 8 of us were flown out to Milwaukee, and we did, tours, and we did photo shoots, and the video that got released when they announced it. We were in the Harley-Davidson Museum. They have a restaurant and cafe, and we were in there on that week, and we got the whole rundown. We met so many people. That was a crazy week, but it was very, very cool. And so by the time that things got announced and everything was going, was definitely June. From June through Labor Day, through September, because we went to the 115th anniversary in September, and that was the end of ends. It was after that.
Was that a paid internship, if you don't mind me asking, or was it just more of like a material support, summer of your lifetime kind of trip?
Right. Yeah. Emotional payment. Yeah.
Right.
It was so. Yeah. So it. We got to keep the bikes. So that, if you consider that payment, for sure.
Sure.
And then, and on top of that, we were given a stipend, because we were at the end of the day, all of us set everything down and we're traveling around, right? So we needed money for food. So for things like food and gas, we got a stipend.
So they set you guys up with the bikes, the stipend, and did they give you guys any sort of like guidelines or rules, or don't say this or don't say that, or was it pretty much free reign for you guys?
It was very much hands off for sure. And we got, it was, so when we started, we each got a list of events that we needed to be present at. And they also offered up, and I mentioned how big they were on safety. They also offered up, if any of us felt uncomfortable actually doing like the road trip portion of the summer between events, that they would, fly us out, and then we could like get a rental or anything. Nobody ended up wanting to do that, because we all were like, are you kidding me? Of course we're going to ride the motorcycle across the country.
Right.
But yeah, no, we had a list of events we had to be at, but once you were there, it was pretty much like, hey, between these hours on this day, we're going to give you access to the Harley-Davidson like Instagram story or like Facebook feed, and you made some stories or a video or whatever. But beyond that, no, I mean, a lot of it was, and there were definitely like, we had a weekly call where we reported on like analytics and metrics and how are our posts doing, were we reaching, people who are currently riding, people who haven't started riding yet. They gave us a riding academy passes that we gave out throughout the summer, which was cool as well. And so there was a lot of chances for us to engage in that way as well, to get people riding, because that was obviously the big initiative, was reach out to new people like myself who had never ridden before.
I guess my big question I have in this is, I saw your videos and all your videos. I was watching all you guys, kind of like just interested to see what this program became, because I think it was necessary. And one of the things that I hear frequently, and I genuinely am right on board with, is that there was like a squandered opportunity out of those 8 interns that Harley-Davidson had. What's fascinating, and I've had this conversation, is that like nobody continued on with Harley-Davidson under like a continued story about like, hey, here's this guy just started riding, and let's go through and watch this evolve over the next like 4 or 5 years. And I see your Instagram posts and your photos, and I'm like, this is like the modern like James Dean looking like dude who could like stand next to his bike, post all these videos, and like actually be a legitimate guy that connects with that youth. Why would that not continue? So my question is, did Harley-Davidson offer any sort of jobs to you guys, any of you guys, to continue on long term? Yeah,
so they were definitely open to it, and Harley has many programs when you're coming into the company. Like I don't want to say that the way that we were coming into the company is illegitimate, but like normally coming into the company, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
It's a little bit strange the way that we were involved, right? But yeah, no, it wasn't so much a straight shot like right after the internship. It wasn't like, hey, okay, now that the internship's over, you're full time. I myself didn't pursue further. Number one, because I still had a year of college to do, and only just finished that this last year. But also because as much as I love it, I'm looking into making a go of comedy and my own thing first. Right. And I definitely still in my mind the idea of going and applying again at Harley, and because the work culture is awesome. And it's so funny because when you go to events, because I went to like Sturgis, I went to some very core motorcycle rider events. You see a lot of and you were talking about it briefly, that sort of cookie cutter personality type that people associate oftentimes, unfairly even with motorcycling. But you also see some other smaller niche groups in motorcycling as well. And what was so interesting about Harley's corporate environment was that it is so diverse in the types of people that are riding. And so I would definitely say that it's something that they know. They need differing opinions on, and they need different like lifestyles that brought to the table, which, we were, the 8 interns were definitely examples of different lifestyles, but even on the staff, people that were full-time already represented a lot of different perspectives that or non-traditional, I guess, motorcyclists, excuse me.
And do you think that the program, being that, it was kind of short-lived, right? Like a lot of guys, or a lot of guys and girls didn't carry on necessarily with it. Do you think that the program did what it set out to do as far as reaching younger riders, ultimately? Do you think it was a success in that form?
I think yes and no, and I think that they do too. I think that it was largely for them, because when we all came into it, we were under the assumption that this is like a social media campaign. When really, for them, and the way that they described it to us, and not really in full until we were wrapping up, because we had a big presentation, all the 8 interns to the company at the very end, and we all discussed what we learned and the discoveries that we made, and ultimately what it was not only the PR part, the social media part was all sort of icing on the cake, and the cake for them was, let's take these people who have never ridden before, or in some cases there were a couple that had ridden lightly before, all different backgrounds and different lifestyles and personalities, and give them a motorcycle and see what happens, just to kind of see the way that people who genuinely, had no involvement with motorcycling, young people especially, would respond. And I think from that standpoint, they absolutely learned a lot. In a lot of ways, it was sort of like the world's most expensive consulting gig. You know what I mean? Like we came in and they gave us bikes and everything, which was amazing. But ultimately, I think that they were trying to just gather information on a true 0 to 100 millennial motorcycling experience, and I'd say they succeeded in that.
And that's actually really interesting to hear that explanation, because this is where I think, in all reality, I think that sometimes Harley's not great at, I want to say, controlling the message, because if their objective was, this is a focus group for us, and we want to learn and glean some information from this younger audience that we really aren't selling a whole lot of bikes to, they should maybe say that publicly so that people aren't expecting to receive a whole bunch of social media content around it. Because personally, I'm sitting here watching this going man, there's only a handful of videos out of all these guys, really not a whole lot of exposure, and Harley really fell flat on their face with that, but they didn't if that wasn't their objective. So, what was their objective? And I think that maybe, I think a lot of people, when they heard about the program, got a false sense of hope that the program was something that maybe it was never even intended to be to begin with.
I think that social media wise, marketing wise, the biggest win for Harley in the Find Your Freedom program was the announcement, because that's when everyone hopped on it, right? Oh, every news outlet ever is hey, they're giving 20-somethings free motorcycles to ride across the country. So I think largely what it was, and the reason I think that it was a success at some level for them, was, hey, we get this. We broadcast this message of, look, Harley-Davidson is looking to inspire young riders to ride motorcycles. Check. And then they have us as a focus group to see what that actually looks like from 0 to 100, a young person getting on a bike. And yes, I think that the social media part, the actual content creation part, there was a potential for that to, be enormous and be, even bigger than the announcement. But I definitely think it would have been hard to follow up with the hype. There's a hype train that starts when you announce that Harley-Davidson is giving bikes to people for free to ride across the country. So I definitely think the bar was high, and I also will admit that I thought it was going to be much worse in terms of people's response. I thought that we were going to get shredded. I mean, how could we not? You know what I mean? Coming into this, especially from core riders who, are, like you said, see people in the age range of 18 to late 30s as this group that doesn't know anything about motorcycles and shouldn't be entertained at all.
Right. But then they also get mad at them that they're not buying motorcycles, which I find comical.
Right. No, exactly.
That actually gets into kind of my next couple questions here, I guess, before we wrap up. But I look at my channel, right, and I have 3.9 million views, and I look at the numbers. 61.9% of that, call it 4 million views, are between 18 and 44. If I run a search for only my Harley-Davidson content, those numbers flip completely. 46 out of my 264 videos, which is 485,000 views, 66.2% are over 45. So, wow. You go from 68% being between 18 and 44, which that's the chunk. That's what Harley wants. They want those people. Mm-hmm. The content alone tells you that the only people that are really looking for this content are people that are already in the lifestyle, so to speak. They're searching for this content, they're finding it, they're watching it, and they're enjoying it. So just kind of trying to figure out, and everything I talk about on this channel, Harley related, is my genuine passion behind the brand and desire to see them reassociate with the younger crowd. You have a YouTube channel. You know that if you wanted to, you could spend a margin of money to specifically take this video today and only put it in front of 18-year-olds if you wanted to. So what's amazing to me is that I watch Harley-Davidson's channel. It's great production, great videos, but younger people see that and just they're not interested. They want to watch you, me, some other guy talking about our experience, things we like, things we hate, things, the reality of all of that. And that's what people identify with. So Harley for $100,000 could turn around, take your content, specifically target it at an audience, and let you do an organic thing without even necessarily telling you. They could do this tomorrow to anybody. They can unorganically promote the crap out of somebody. Meanwhile, you're going to have some guy over here going like, wow, I'm super popular and have no idea why. But they could use all of this content. There's so much of it out there. I mean, I'm talking endless hours of Harley-Davidson content that they could basically just buy without even asking permission from anybody and just really start promoting that stuff directly right to the people that they want to. Do you know or have a theory on why they wouldn't be doing that?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's hard, right? Because I definitely agree. I think, and this is just general, not even specific to Harley-Davidson theory, but I definitely believe that media and the consumption of media has become so tremendously personal because of, number one, obviously the internet and targeted marketing, but also because everybody is a filmmaker. I mean, in 2020, you've got a 4K camera in your pocket and like all the tools to edit a full-length video together, and that's like the first time that's happened ever. So
True.
Content creation, this space is enormous for I think probably starting with the millennial demographic and then onward and upward with every subsequent generation that is growing up, Gen Z and all of them from now on. I mentioned earlier the final presentation to sort of the company, and we talked extensively about exactly that. It is so important to have content that doesn't just look genuine, but is like it's someone who is experiencing this, and these are their thoughts, and whether or not that person is the personality type or has the content to build an audience, whatever the case, if they've got people who trust them and they're honest, then that's the next step for sure. So as far as why they haven't done that, I think they're headed that way, but I think it's tough because it's almost as if they need to exist right now as two brands, right? Because still to this day, their major source of income, is their core writers, people over, and that the age is getting higher and higher, but over 50 probably.
It's around 50.
Yeah. So, that is still a demographic that, as much as it is important that they appeal to younger people, they can't forget, because then that's when they'll really go belly up. You know what I mean? So I think it's definitely been trouble for them to leverage those two images. Like, you want this one image where it's like, oh, we're young, we're hip, we're counterculture again, or like the counterculture. And this
Right.
other image of, oh, well, we're still making familiar Harley-Davidson stuff because this is an iconic brand. And that's incredibly hard to juggle. And that's something that we felt the entire time. What I predict will happen is, and I don't want to be grim in the way that I put it, but as time passes, I feel like the millennial demographic, they're probably going to have a hard time reaching. But as time passes and Gen Z starts to grow up, I think that's when, as Harley-Davidson's public image shifts and the stigmas, which everyone knows are associated with the kind of with the people that ride, and not everyone obviously believes in those stigmas, but definitely they're present about the brand and about the people involved in it. Those stigmas start to fade, and it shifts into, again, a counterculture, because that's always been the thing for Harley-Davidson. It's funny, have you heard of Go Fast, Don't Die?
No.
Okay, they're an Instagram primarily brand. I think they sell merch, but it's a group of guys and gals, and they are big Harley fans, but motorcycle fans in general. And it's sort of, I thought they were at Sturgis is when I first encountered them, and they're sort of like I saw them as the rebirth of how, Harley-Davidson initiated, or their big success was in the counterculture. Like, it was the thing that you did. You got a Harley if you were against the man. You know what I mean?
Right.
I saw Go Fast, Don't Die, and there exist other brands like it, but they're one of the bigger ones. I think they've got like 50K Instagram followers or something like that. I saw them as sort of the counterculture. Like, they were young people, again, coming up and sort of I see them as the beginning of the reassociation with Harley-Davidson as like an edgy counterculture brand, and I think that right now Harley-Davidson's looking for what their identity will be with young people. It's sort of, I feel like with Livewire, there's and with all of the EVs that they're releasing, I think there's potential for them to look like the sleek. I think it'll be hard, but I think there's potential for them to look like the sleek tech company-esque, like boosted board type thing that appeals because of, the hardworking, I don't know, Silicon Valley millennial, right? That like zips around to work or whatever it is. I think there's a chance of that happening, but I think what is more likely to happen is those counterculture brands like Go Fast, Don't Die over time will again sort of define the identity of the brand.
Yeah, and that's it's certainly an interesting take and kind of a frightening take, but in all reality, I look at things like, we live in this Uber, Lyft, rideshare community world that we live in now, and the ability to be able to buy a motorcycle today, and maybe not in the Northeast. I come from New York originally, couldn't do it there. Here in Arizona, I can buy a bike, not even own a car, and then the 3 days a year that it rains, I can just Uber to work. It's you
Right.
literally could ride a motorcycle 99% of the year, and it's like that. A lot of the, Southwest specifically, but there's a lot of opportunity there. That's not. I don't think people are being sold that opportunity to maybe take advantage of that. But I'm not sure. It's an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I know that there's a lot of discussion still about the potential for Harley-Davidson to fail ultimately, even though, and I believe in them, and I know the team that is working on it, and they're super capable. They know the things that are troubling their fans, and it's stuff that they work on every day. They have some insane work ethics, and they're incredibly smart, and they love the brand and they love motorcycles. And just one person in particular, John Dunbar, who was my, I think he got promoted. I think he was a project lead when I was interning with them, but I think anyway, he is hyper familiar with everything that's going on. And so I know that they're working on it. And so I don't mean to discount that work that's happening whatsoever, but I definitely think that, outlook for them will look better as time goes on. I think that they've seen the worst of it. That's what I think.
I guess it's interesting, and I really appreciate you coming on to have the discussion because, again, I genuinely believe that most people just want to see people talk genuinely, honestly, and open about a topic, good, bad, or indifferent, and not try to necessarily sugarcoat things. And I think that's something that Harley-Davidson kind of needs to embrace a little bit more, and let it be what it is. So, that's pretty much all I have here for you for questions. So I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to go over or talk about, but the mic's yours. You can plug whatever you have here.
I think that's it for me. And as far as plugs, I'm at Brock St. Clair on everything, but I'm not. I'm a comedy writer and a video person, so not the most motorcycle content you're going to get from me.
Fair enough.
If you want to give me a shot, at Brock St. Clair. And Dan, thank you so much for having me on, man.
So, guys, that was my interview with Brock. I'm really thrilled to have him on. Really great guy. It was a really easy conversation. Again, an hour long that we were able just to kind of talk about the entire experience. And unfortunately, I had to cut a lot of that stuff out just to keep the video watchable because it was just a very long, genuine discussion. And I'm really happy and thankful that he came on the channel. So thank you very much, Brock. Everybody, please go check out his social media channels. Links in the description down below, as always. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I will see you guys next time with a shorter video, I'm sure.